From Naples, Florida, this is a One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex is taking the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663. Or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're talking about why vocalization matters in the bedroom.
There's an anonymous quote that says, "Your voice is a unique instrument that has the power to touch hearts and move souls." And I would just say, for the purpose of this particular episode, we're only worried about moving one heart and soul, and that is that of your spouse. As we jump into today's episode, we start every episode with a hug, and a hug is really an opportunity for us to celebrate you, to celebrate what you've done in your marriage, where you're having breakthroughs, where you're taking action and being intentional. And this hug comes from a post in the One Family private Facebook group that starts with, "My wife is a teacher, and every so often the kids have no school and she has an in-service day. On those days, while she works, I take the kids on a special outing. Well, today she is on her holiday break, and I had the honor to take her out on a special day. A hotel night, wicked matinee, a game time at Activate Games, food and shopping. Even found a great way to, quote, alert to the mood without the kids hearing the conversation. Making marriage count with and for this amazing teacher and wife."
Oh, I love it. That's so awesome. What a way to be intentional and,
Absolutely.
and take action.
And take advantage of those days. And to all our teachers, thank you for what you do. We appreciate you immensely and know that your job is not an easy one. So glad that this couple got to enjoy a teacher's day off together. So as Tony had said at the top of this episode, we are talking about why vocalization matters in the bedroom.
And can I just say around sexual intimacy?
Correct. Yes. We're not just talking about the two of you having a conversation. And, you know, this is a conversation that I won't say it's cyclical in our marriage, but it does come up every so often where Tony will voice to me, "Hey, I need you to vocalize more."
That's why we're having this episode, because I needed to have that conversation with Elisa again.
So he brought it up. We had the conversation. We're now having the conversation with you all, right? I mean, it's why if you look back over it, actually, as this episode drops, the podcast, happy birthday to the One Extraordinary Marriage podcast.
That would be 15 years.
We are officially 15 years old. We're a teenager.
Wow.
Holy cow. We're like well into the teenage years.
Yes.
And, you know, throughout the last 15 years, we've talked about vocalization, but, you know, Tony and I continue to get older. We continue to have just different seasons in our life, and we continue to talk about the topics because I think, you know, just even reflecting back on this and Tony saying, yeah, we needed to have this topic, is that, you know, our marriage is a living, growing, breathing entity. Right. And so there are going to be those topics that come back up. And I think even bringing this topic up again, it's like, how do the two of you have those conversations over again? Not just assuming that it's a one and done conversation, but rather stepping into, hey, we just need to revisit this.
I think that's a really good perspective to have, because I would suspect, and I think we've been there ourselves and have found ourselves there, is like, well, we've already had that conversation. And that conversation may have happened 2 months ago, 2 years ago,
20 years ago.
And yet there needs to be this understanding. Just because we had it once doesn't mean we can't have it again. And it doesn't mean that we're having conflict in it. It means that we're growing, that we're changing. And as Elisa said, marriage is a growing, living entity. And so it's not a one and done conversation. What happened 2 months ago or 2 years ago or 20 years ago, and the conversation you had there around vocalization, which is a topic we're on today, it's okay if you bring it back up. Because we have changed and we have grown older and things have shifted from maybe you at one point in time when you had this first conversation, your children were teenagers and they're in the house. Now they're all gone. That's a big shift.
Totally different conversation. Or maybe you didn't have children and now you do have children and you're having that conversation.
Yes.
And, you know, just from a place of transparency, in our more difficult years, especially early on, I don't think I vocalized at all. I mean,
I don't think I did really either.
But, and I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for Tony. Tony wouldn't know if I was enjoying myself, if he was pleasing me, or if I was even awake. I mean, let's face it, if you're not vocalizing, and a lot of times you might not be giving any type of feedback, right? And it wasn't until we really went after just this transformational season in our marriage, which was the 60-day sex challenge. For those of you that have listened to episode 1, it is episode 1. I'm not saying you have to do a sex challenge to be able to have this conversation about vocalization.
No.
That's just when things shifted for us. But in that, one of the things that Tony had brought up when we were in that 60-day season was, I need you to vocalize in when we're being sexually intimate. Like, I need to know, is this working for you? And I think part of what even prompted that at the beginning was we'd gone from having sex so infrequently that it was just kind of like, okay, well, we're just having sex, to having sex on a daily basis with more regularity. And you're like, okay, like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I had my own internal struggles with this. What was vocalization? Like, what did that mean? And I'm old enough to remember the movie When Harry Met Sally, actually one of my favorites. And there is the scene. And if you haven't seen this scene, just Google Harry Met Sally restaurant scene. It's the scene where she's faking an orgasm in the restaurant, and people look over from the other table and say, well, I'll have what she's having. Because it's this really dramatic faking of an orgasm in the middle of a restaurant. And, so that's like the one image that I have of like what vocalization is supposed to be. And I'm also like, but she's faking it. Right. So, but is that what vocalization is? That actor process of making sounds with your voice? Was it what you saw on soap operas or on TV or in the movie? Like what is it?
I am going to link to that clip here in the episode notes.
Okay. I appreciate you.
I'll have what she's having.
That's actually the YouTube clip. But then there were all of these like also mental hurdles. Like, what if somebody hears us? What if I do it wrong? Is there a right way to vocalize? Like, what does that look like? And then if you have kids in your home, and I don't care if they're like newborns all the way up to the kids that have rebounded, or what do they call boomerang, back, your adult children coming back in, and you don't want them to hear you, there's the whole thing of like, well, what if somebody does hear us, right? And you can be in this place of just going, I don't think I can do this. I don't know if I want to do it. Right? And what's really interesting about this, because I hear that this is a struggle for so many couples, is last week on Instagram stories, we asked you all the question, do you think vocalization during sexual intimacy makes a difference in your connection? 92% of the one family that responded said yes. 92%. So there's this huge consensus that it does make a difference. But when we ask the question, what keeps you from vocalizing, the responses clearly indicate that it's not happening.
Right. And that's where I'd like to just talk to you just briefly before we go into everybody else's responses. If 92% of the one family says, yes, it's important to have vocalization during sex, then what holds you back from doing that?
Oh, I love it when he puts me on the spot like this and I don't know it's coming because I prep all the episodes. I think for me, and even like when I look at this, I will tell you that there is a level of vulnerability. There is, and this is not all happening at the same time. So let me just preface this because I'm going to give you a number of different answers.
Okay. So take me, can we just walk this through a little bit here?
Let's just walk through.
Start foreplay, right? What's going on in your mind then? Because I will say, as of recent, you could hear absolutely a pin drop in that moment. Would you say that's accurate? Totally. Okay. Like, I am trying to help you by vocalizing, and there is no movement. And so I'm trying to figure out, just start me there. What's going on? Sure.
I'm trying to get my head in the game. So there are mental hurdles that I am jumping over to get fully present with you.
And that can take like 15 minutes?
I don't put a stopwatch on it, babe. Like, I'm not there with the ready, set, go, click. I don't know that it takes 15 minutes. I know very specifically, like probably the last time, like I was seriously having to have conversations in my head, get your head in the game. I literally was telling a coaching client about this yesterday.
This isn't morning sex. This is the one before that.
I can't remember.
Okay.
Well, I can't remember which one it was. Like, I don't remember.
Okay.
It was
Well, the one before that was very good. I felt like
then
that
it would have been the morning sex.
It was more crescendo, where morning sex was just sort of
I'm
more
just saying,
like,
there are times when I have mental hurdles getting fully present.
Okay.
And so until that starts to click over for me, because I am much more of a responsive desire. We know this, right? And so the vocalization for me, like if I'm not one that's going to fake it, right? So let me just put that in a bucket. We had those years. I no longer fake it. That was part of my past. Again, little role modeling from when Harry met Sally. We've had the conversations. Tony knows I used to fake all the things. So I'm not going to fake it.
Okay.
And so in that place of getting into foreplay, getting my body, getting my head, because those are two totally separate things, working together to a place where I can be like, oh yeah, you're fully present. That's typically when you start to hear some kind of vocalization.
Yeah, that takes a while though.
Sometimes it does. I'm
and
not,
that's hard.
I wouldn't dispute that. It's hard for me because I'm just like, get there.
Yeah, because I don't know if you're liking it or not.
And that is 100% why we're doing this episode, because there is very much, and this happens with husbands and wives. There is this place of, are we doing this together? Like I'm aware of it. It really hit me. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I'm glad you're aware of it, because most recently I'm just like, what's happening here? Like there's no vocalization whatsoever, especially in that foreplay time. And you're getting me aroused, so I'm vocalizing somewhat, and I would think that there would be a reciprocating sound, and there is none. And so that's where I get a little like, what are we doing here? So to know that you're trying to get there. So what's going on in your head that you can't get in the game?
Oh my gosh. It's like, it can be like the tabs are all open on a computer screen.
So do I need to like, do I need to be like,
it's really funny.
Do I need to like shut you down and then like reboot you? Like, hey, Elise.
I don't even know what that would be.
Like we need to shut you down.
But I do have to share, like,
or we need to close these
like
tabs.
if you look at Tony's computer, his tabs are all beautifully like organized, and he's got them all like all the docs are open together, and all the Excel or all the spreadsheets are open together. Mine seriously looks like my brain. I've got like Gmail on one side, and then I've got Gmail on the other side, and for better or for worse, that's how my brain, and that's my like, okay, we're here.
Okay, so
we're in this moment. You've said yes because you want to, but you're working on getting here. Like, relax, deep breathe, like all of those things it's kind of the same thought process sometimes. And it's not an always thing. Obviously it's not an always thing.
No. And I would say, again, where we brought up at the beginning of the episode, these are conversations we need to have at different times throughout our marriage, because I feel like there was a time, and I don't know how far back it was, where that wasn't taking as long. Like, I feel like there was again, you said responsive desire. We have an episode 809. I'll make sure we drop that here for people to listen to. But I feel like you would jump into it much quicker, where now I feel like it's a long, and I don't know if it's 15 minutes. I mean, I'm not keeping a clock either. I'm not looking at that either. I just have felt like it's just taking longer. And then, and that's one section.
Sure.
And I know we have to roll through the episode, but I do want to go to the next part.
This is how Tony has these conversations, you guys.
The next part is, now you're in it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you're starting to hear stuff.
We're starting to hear something. All right. And so not morning sex, but the one prior to that.
Okay.
Right. Nobody's in the house. Nobody's here. Like,
yes.
One child is gone, like lives on the other side of the country.
Right.
The other one was at
not
church
here.
that night. I think it was the college
whatever.
night or whatever. We live in a home in Florida that is
built of concrete.
No
hurricane. It's not going down. All the things.
Right. Like we're not living in a condo like we used to many, many years ago or what have you. And so we're in it. I can tell you are very much in it. Mm-hmm. And even then, it struck me because I'm like, Elisa, let go. Like, I think at one point I said it. I was like, Elisa, let go. Like, you're putting the pillow over your head. And I think
I was not. Like, it must have fallen. I do not like grab the pillow and put it
No,
over.
I wasn't saying you grabbed the pillow, but the pillow was over your head and you were like holding back almost like a release, like not a, I don't want to say a scream, but a very much like you were repressing that vocalization.
So
maybe I misread that.
Yeah, I'm having to think back. I think sometimes what happens, and I'm very aware, one of the other behaviors that I have, and some of you may have this as well, is that I have a tendency to hold my breath as and I have looked into this in the past. I know that I'm not the only one. It actually does happen where women can hold their breath or like not breathe as regularly during sexual climax.
Okay.
And that is 100% something that I do. And I've done it for years. Like I hold my, and I think it's just the intensity of the moment, the sensation and all that kind of thing. So part of that, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't, more often than not, I do. When you're holding your breath, it is very hard to also vocalize at the same time. Those two things. And so I hold on to the intensity of the orgasm. And there isn't necessarily that vocalization because I've done it for like, there are times when I'm like, breathe. And I'm like, no, you're just like, I literally, and then there's the intensity. And then, when the orgasm, has happened and whatnot, then I breathe. So that's why, and it varies. So here's the other part of this that I think is really important is that vocalization doesn't look the same in every encounter that the two of you have. So, even Tony bringing up these couple instances, they're very different from one another and they're very different from other experiences that we've had together. There's no like it's not routine. It's not rote. It doesn't look the same every single time.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah. No, that helps. It brings some clarity.
And I don't know what the pillow was. Like, I don't remember seeing the pillow. I don't remember the sensation of a pillow on my face. So I don't know if like one of the pillows on our bed had fallen on my face. I don't know what that was.
I don't know, but I felt like there was this very much a crescendo part. And all of a sudden I'm like, why is there a pillow on her face?
I have no idea. So clearly neither one of us know how the pillow got there. But this is such an important conversation to have because for some of you, it is awkward or embarrassing or you don't know how to do it. For others, you're afraid that if you do vocalize, you're going to be rejected or you don't have the confidence to do this because you're like, oh, I don't know. Like, is it like the When Harry Met Sally? Is it supposed to look like in the movies? Or you're embarrassed because you're like, I have no idea what noises I make. And I will just say this, noises of pleasure, right? Like nobody's recording you. This isn't like just be in the moment with your spouse, right? But talking through this, some of you don't know how your spouse is going to react. This is why having conversations about sexual intimacy are always tied to your emotional intimacy and your ability to talk about it. And I do want to say one thing that for some of you, the vocalization may be associated with past trauma. And if that's the case, Tony and I say this all the time. If there has been trauma in the past, please go get help. Not so that you can or can't vocalize. That's not even why we're telling you to get help. We're telling you to get help because we don't want you living a life where the trauma is the largest thing that keeps you from fully being who you are. That's why we tell you to go get help when there's been trauma. But, as we've been talking through this, again, coming back to that statistic, 92% of you say it makes a difference in your connection. And we can't just have this be a conversation about like, well, Tony and Lisa, like, what does that look like? I love that Tony's asked me these questions, but it's important to go, what does this look like in our marriage? Right. For the two of us. And we're going to talk about that after this break. With us brand new to Southwest Florida, trying to figure out what our next home is going to be is so much easier with Redfin. Whether you're looking to buy or rent your next place, you need the Redfin app. Redfin makes it fun to search all the homes and apartments in your neighborhood. We've been able to look at so many different homes in the area, really getting a feel for what's here and what we like. It's been fun to search and ask the questions, where do we want to live? What are homes like here? What amenities do we really want? And if you find a place you love, Redfin makes it easy to go see it in person. Just schedule the tour right from the app. Plus, if you're looking to sell, Redfin agents know how to get you the best price possible for your home. That's because they close twice as many deals as other agents. And with a listing fee as low as 1%, Redfin's fees are half of what others often charge, which means you'll have more money to put towards your next home. So whether you're looking to buy, rent, or sell, Redfin's got you covered. Download the Redfin app to get started. Do you feel overwhelmed when it comes to makeup? Well, Charlotte Tilbury has bottled 30 years of artistry into easy-to-choose, easy-to-use beauty products. You can't go wrong. They're flattering for everyone, everywhere. That's the reason why she is the queen of glow. Her rigorous standards ensure that every product is designed and formulated for performance like nothing else on the market. Take her iconic Hollywood Flawless Filter. With one product, you can blur, smooth, and illuminate the look of skin. Plus, it's skincare infused for clinically proven hydration for up to 24 hours. From red carpets to influencers' bathrooms, her legendary icons have gone viral for making everyone look and feel like the most beautiful, confident version of themselves. Charlotte Tilbury is performance you can trust. It's legendary for a reason. You can use CT Podcast 15 for 15% off on charlottetilbury.com. Plus, new account holders get free delivery. This ad is brought to you by Charlotte Tilbury, USA customers only, and valid until March 2nd, 2025. For full TNCs and exclusions, see the Charlotte Tilbury website. We're back, and we're talking about breaking the silence around vocalizing in the bedroom. And, one of the things I was thinking about with that statistic and whatnot is not just does it make a difference in your bedroom, but does it make a positive difference? Please hear me that word, a positive difference in the connection that you feel during your sexual intimacy? Does it make a positive difference for your spouse? And the reason I pose those two questions is because sexual intimacy isn't just about you, and it isn't just about your spouse. It's about creating closeness and connection for the two of you. So it's important to reflect on how do I feel about it? Mm-hmm. And it's important to have the conversations, kind of like Tony was modeling for all of you, of saying, well, like, this is what it looks like for me. Right? This is how as your spouse, this is how I feel about it. This is like, I don't understand why, when it seems really, really intense, why you wouldn't scream there. But if I know you're holding your breath, which I can tell just like if you could see Tony's face, he's like, I don't get it. Breathe and scream. Breathe and scream. But I'm also like, if it's really intense, I am going to just like, that's really good, dude. I want the intensity.
Which means holding your breath. And
a lot of times, yes. He's still not convinced. I wish you guys could see him right now. He's like, No,
I am. I totally understand it. I just find it interesting.
Because I'm different than you.
Yes, for sure. But I do think in the past that wasn't so much the case.
So I'm going to say something right here, and I'm not using it as a cop-out. I don't know how menopause has changed, perimenopause is changing that for me. And
which I was sort of putting two and two together. Like, how's that impacted how she's engaging with me?
I mean, you would have a better sense of the time frame of when you felt like that has changed, probably more than I do. And if it's been like in the last year, 18 months, then that is when my perimenopause symptoms have definitely ramped up. And again, I'm not, this isn't like, I'm throwing down the PMS card or the perimenopause card. That's something I still have to explore. Yeah. And it's why even like in Menopause Shouldn't Suck, we talk about like, how does what we're experiencing impact our husbands? How what are those conversations? Kind of like what you and I are having right now. Yeah. It's why it's so vital to hear from a husband and go, hey babe, like this has changed in this last little bit.
Yeah. And it's not an attack. Like, please understand, like, this isn't an attack on Elisa by any stretch. It's an understanding. And I think that's part of the conversations we do need to come into with our spouse is, I don't think our spouses, when they're asking us something, are attacking us. It can feel like it. Mm-hmm. And I can get that way as well. I'm not saying I don't. I think for the most part, it's inquisitive, learning. Okay, well, now that I know that from Elisa, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, how can I help her close the tabs, shut down, and boot up and quicker? You know what I'm saying though? But
Switch
that's
operating systems.
right. Like, how do I help you get there and understand, like, all right, she needs to put this stuff aside. I don't understand it. Like, if Elisa wants to have sex, I take off my clothes, I get into bed, and everything else leaves my head. I don't care. Like, everything else can wait till tomorrow.
Which in my, like, even hearing you say that, I'm like, that's magical. That really? Like, and this is why it's so important even for you guys just to listen to these conversations, because you might be like, what?
We could be stressing on a lot of stuff about what's going on with the children. You know, there could be storms with One Extraordinary Marriage, with something here, there. Literally, if you're like, let's go have sex, I'm like, everything else can go. Like, I really don't, like, to me,
it's like a superpower.
That's me. I don't know if that's everybody, but I'm like, if I'm going to be able to have sex and just not rid myself, but take a break from everything else, from life, and experience that euphoria and that time with you, I don't care. When we're done, it'll come back and I'll deal with it then.
Wow. Yeah. See, I like that. That sounds like a superpower to me. And it just, highlights the difference between who Tony and I are. And, it's not necessarily a husband and wife thing. You two might have the opposite dynamic.
True.
Right. But it's having these types of conversations. It's talking about these topics. And I want to say, just as we talk about some of the action items, like, start this conversation outside of your bedroom, right? Away from where the two of you generally are sexually intimate, and take it out so that you're not trying to compete with that. Like, oh, well, this is where we have sex, but we're also going to talk about sex, and we're going to, like, build up this pressure or have this kind of stuff. Ask the question, what would make you feel more confident expressing yourself in the bedroom, right? Or if it's not a confidence thing, like, maybe the word is comfortable. What would make you more comfortable? Or what has changed? Like, Tony could ask that question, and he kind of did in this episode. What has changed in this last period of time? Because you used to be able to get there faster. Like, what is different now? So that we're having these conversations. Talk about, if you're concerned about your kids hearing you, if that's an issue, if you have, like I said, newborn to boomerang, is it the kids? Is it something else? Is it, are you worried about your sounds? Talk about different types of feedback that, like Tony has said, when you vocalize, like, it helps me to know that you're there and you're present. Right? Being able to share that with your spouse.
I think for me too, and I know you don't want to fake it, and I so appreciate that. I think within the foreplay section, just having some sense of I'm enjoying this moment, or this is pleasing to me, would be helpful. And I understand not wanting to fake it, because we've had that before, and we're like, no, we don't want that. So it's just, it's a fine line too, to be able to go, because I don't want you to feel like it's forced either. Like, I want you to be who you are to experience it. I just can say that in that moment, it can feel long, and it's like, you could hear a pin drop, and some of you like music or sound, or if I turn music on in my bedroom, Elisa will, like, she'll start laughing, because it's not something that works for her. Even, like, just music, like, instrumental. Like, we've tried
our sound
like
machine.
All these sort of different things. So it can just feel a little
silent. It's why the title of this episode is Breaking the Silence.
Right. It's just silent. It's like, okay, do I make a sound now? And I'm like, I'm going to, because I'm being pleased and pleasured. So in that regard, I think it's something we still need to work through. Obviously, we can't do it all in this episode.
Well, and even hearing you say that makes me think, just from a very simple, hey, I'm working on getting there, right? Like, this is working. We're getting there. Like, even just some type of verbalization, not faking it, not creating sounds, but just stepping into this place of communicating. That's happening.
Hey, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. Because then in that point too, it's like, I can comfort. Like, I feel like in that moment, then I can be like, okay, cool. Like, I got you, babe.
Right.
Like, I get it.
It's
like,
part of the connection.
Whatever it takes for you to get there, I'm here for you. But in the silence, I don't know that. And then that's when my mind starts to run wild. If there's one thing that does happen, I can get rid of everything. But once we're in that moment, everything I'm thinking about is, how do I please you, and how do I help you have the best time and have the orgasm that you want? And so my mind starts to spin in like, is she liking this? Am I in the right spot? Do I need to move? Do I need to do something else? Do I need to go to oral? So that spinning begins in my head. So for you to say something as simple as like, I'm getting there, would put that at ease. And I think would help me to be able to then please you differently.
Sure. Absolutely.
Or maybe just like, hey, go to oral or whatever it may be to help you get there, I think would be of help.
Well, and I'm going to say it's not just having this conversation, but it's also like choosing to be vocal during non-sexual touch, right? When you're just doing your physical intimacy. So if you get a really good hug or a really good kiss, it's okay to have pleasure and express the pleasure vocally during those non-sexually intimate times.
Correct.
Right? Doing that, because that just starts to go, it's like flexing a muscle, right? Doing your reps. Okay, if I can do it when we're kissing here, what happens when we kiss in the bedroom? That type of thing. When you are in your bedroom, create a safe environment. Again, when we had little kids, we were using the sound and sleep machine. That was definitely a help. Practice being more vocal when your kids are not in the house. Or if you've got deep sleepers and you can get to a point where they're like deep sleep. If you're worried about how your spouse is going to react to your sounds, like have the conversation. Be like, babe, I have no idea what kind of sounds come out of my mouth when like it is really good. And it would help if I just felt like there wasn't going to be any judgment, laughter, any of that kind of stuff. Because then it's like, all right, well, bring it.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation to have. If that's a concern, that's a conversation to have.
And I think the big thing too is being in that place and allowing yourself, which is tough. I think for many of us, we'll have this, there's a repression somewhere, at times where we're like, we feel like we're being judged. And I do believe if you have the conversation to go into this, and I think you and I can as well, is going like, be you, do what you want to do, and know that whatever that is, I'm excited for you. I want to see you have that pleasure. And for some of us, that vocalization matters. For others, like I'm listening to even Elisa and hearing her going like at the height of her climax, it's not that she doesn't want to. It's just that the holding of breath happens and she's trying to get air, So
well, and it's not even just like getting air. It's like I'm in this really intense, amazing moment, and I'm like, yes, I'm with you, but I'm fully present, like with my body experiencing the orgasm. And so,
and just from my perspective, and this is very selfish, and I will say this,
don't send him hate mail.
No, it's just from my perspective, in my mind, right? I am saying that if I am pleasing you, then I should be able to get you to an orgasm where you're screaming or you're expressing, right? But that's
your expectation.
Yes.
That strong orgasm equals loud vocalization.
Correct.
That's the correlation. That's the correlation that you've made, and not expectation, but the correlation that you've made is that.
Well, I think there is an expectation that that's going to happen,
sure.
And there is a correlation that if I am a good lover, right, then in the height of that climax, you would be screaming, moaning, verbalizing, vocalizing in some way that is, I would say, above and beyond like what you would do out on the street. Like you're not going to just
100%.
be right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that's my own stuff. Like,
right.
And folks, we're not perfect. And I'm not trying to say I am perfect. This is something that I'm working through with my wife. And so 28 years married, right? And I'm still willing to go there. So, and talk to Elisa about it because I want to understand. Because sometimes that is an expectation that I am putting on myself, but knowing and understanding what she has said today has been very enlightening because I think I've been wanting to have this conversation for a couple of months now. And so we've created that, and I know we've created that environment in our bedroom where it is amazing. Like I'm just learning new stuff all the time.
There you go. What a candid conversation with us today. And what I would say to each and every one of you is, as you're stepping into this, whatever season you're in, I mean, this may be an episode for those of you that are like super vocal all the time and you're like, really? People have challenges with this? Yes. I'm just going to put it out there. The answer is yes. And for those of you that are like, I don't even know how we would do this, or like if I could do this. And I want to say, start small, right? You do not have to duplicate the When Harry Met Sally scene in your bedroom if you never have. Start with just those simple sounds of pleasure, like a sigh or just a soft moan. Be natural, like allow your body. And I was telling this to some women the other day in a group, and sharing the fact that learning how your body responds, right? Choosing to feel whatever the pleasure is, and just allowing your body to naturally respond to it. You don't have to be anybody else. You don't have to be like the TV stars, movie, whatever. You can just be you. But it's saying, hey, I'm just going to allow myself to feel pleasure, and whatever comes out of my mouth, that's what it's going to be.
Can I just say one last thing and then we'll wrap it? Some of the most intense sexual moments that we have had are when children are in the house. And it's very low volume, moaning, vocalization of pleasure.
Deliberately quiet because
right.
we're locked in our bedroom.
But the intensity of it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, and I know this, like when the children are around or there are people in the home, that's typically it. And that totally is understandable. And the intensity of that is profound. Mm-hmm. And so it's when the children are not here or nobody is here, that's where I sort of go like, well, nobody's here. Like we can do it intensely in that moment when nobody is here. And it's so just intense. Nobody's here, so let loose. But again, this is something that we hope that you will take and just think about this week. Really, it's a conversation between you and your spouse, if you so choose to take it on. And start somewhere. Start with a simple question. Start with something, and I get it. Like, I've said it. Like, I've been wanting to have this conversation for 2 months. And it might take you a little bit of time to get there, too. It's okay. Think about it. Just determine, though, like, if this is something you need to bring up, bring it up. And I knew for myself that we had to share on the show because I wanted, and I think Elisa did too, to show the vulnerability that it takes to get to this place. Is it all resolved? I don't know if it's completely resolved. I know there's new information, and we'll just see what it's like the next time we make love. And so with that, you guys have yourselves a fantastic week. We're truly honored and blessed to have you part of the One family. There's nothing greater in this world than to know that your marriage is being impacted because of what is said here and what you're doing. So go out there, take action, and go vocalize this next time you have sex with your spouse. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.